We are going to we're going to go through how to prepare a speech. So you might think of Toastmaster tells me how to prepare a speech. You might think of we writing speeches. So typically, we have been writing since childhood. Remember, like when you have essays coming in, you find a topic, we write, create a rough draft, and then from that rough draft, from planning, we write an intro, we write a body, and we write a conclusion. There is one challenge there. When we do writing for school, and when people come to Toastmasters, and in my first 5 years, I used to write my speeches like that. The challenge was it looks visually great, but when you deliver it, it sounds totally awful. It sounded flat. And then I asked all these people. I joined, in fact, I paid a lot of money for speaking coaches outside Toastmasters, got professional speakers coach me. And I told, when you speak, it is so engaging. Your stories flow so smoothly. But when I hear me writing and when hear the other speakers, it's kind of disjointed. How do I how do I get that flow? And the other reason why I want to put this particular module as a first step here is we're going to forget how to write a speech altogether. We are going to learn a new technique of writing speeches. So that means it will take you less than 20 minutes. Believe me, I put 30 minutes. The package that I brought told me you can write a speech in 10 minutes. Now, the reason here is you write a speech and then we start the art of refining a speech. The best speakers, like look at history, Winston Churchill, you have Lincoln, you have all the speakers, they actually rewrite the speech. Now, what does that mean? Rewriting means they have written once, practiced once, and then rewrote it. So when we rewrite it, it's the art of refining. So that means we create a draft, first draft, then we look at from a very high level view, 30 feet view, and see how it looks like, and then we rewrite. When we do a rewrite, we write it for the ear. When we write it for the eyes. Now, there's a big difference when we write. That means when we write, we will, the second phase is we read our speeches, we listen to how we sound. And once you write it, you take a pen and you start underlining things which don't connect. Certain words, say, for example, those flavory words coming in, some extra jargon coming in, some fancy vocabulary coming in, which is very difficult, easy to write, but very difficult to pronounce. And we're going to strike off all the words and use better words for that. All right, so that is the first step is we write, we review, and we rewrite. So, and once we rewrite, uh, then there is the structure to rewriting. I'll cover it now. I'll share screen. Catherine, I think you're on your phone, right?
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay. So see, anyway, I'm recording it. You guys can watch this one later for review. I'm going to share my screen. What I will do because of Catherine, I'm going to share the screen and bring this one here. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. And I'll start a timer for, oh, I didn't, no, I don't want to upgrade. Yeah. So when we write a speech, so typically a speech structure is we write a beginning, body, and conclusion. Now, before I go here, before I forget, why we are doing this? It took me, so when we start as new Toastmasters, it took a long time for me, up to a week, to write just one speech. Yes, we become nervous, we become, and when it takes a week, and sometimes fear comes in that how will I sound, then procrastination comes in. So using this technique, this removes the entire procrastination out because we are approaching our speech piece by piece. The other benefit of writing a speech in this fashion here, and the other fashion which I'll show you, is because it takes less time to write speeches. That means you write a speech, you get ready within a day, you are always ready for a speech at the club. The only way to remove fear and get into confidence is stage time. The more we get into stage, we wean off the fear that actually grips us. Because most of the fear is actually within ourselves. It's like learning to drive. You might read all the books on driving unless you practice those 120 hours of practice till you get your proper license. You'll not feel confident on the road. What we are trying to do is train our muscles to quickly prepare and practice more on going on the stage and delivering. And feel free to deliver the same speech as many times as you want. At Toastmasters, in the pathways, they might tell you, okay, you deliver this speech, now write another speech. If you prepare a speech and you can refine that speech to add a different flavor, you can create one speech and create you write one speech and you create 10 different speeches from the same speech. I call it myself as a three-dimensional story. You prepare a story and you find three lessons, and wherever the lessons fit in, you can put that story in. Okay, so contest update. I won the second place in the division contest. And that was a big journey for me. And did you know I was having an imposter syndrome the previous night? I thought, no, I can't do it. But thanks to this framework, I wrote a fresh speech that night, practiced it twice, and delivered a brand new speech without practicing in front of an audience in the contest. And yeah, it took me to the second level. If I'd have practiced a couple of times, I would have become first. But the power in this one is when you have an idea, you have a speech. I want to minimize when the brain clicks like this, you get into writing. Once it is on paper, the bear is off the back, then we move on. So yeah, coming back to this model, we have typically the beginning, the body, and the close. That is what Toastmaster tells you. You have a beginning, body, and close. Now, does this really work? It works well if you have a week to prepare. So that means you craft a beginning, then by the time you come to the body, you write the body, you write your stories, and then finally you end the conclusion. But when you enter the conclusion, you might have lost track. What do I do in the beginning? Beginning, there's a disconnect between the beginning and the close. And sometimes the body does not connect. And then we waste time in rewriting things. Now, I'm going to introduce a new concept known as, and Catherine knows it. Catherine is my speech template. Now, this is a metastructure of your speech. You see, you have a speech title, you have a purpose, you have audience, and I have knowingly, explicitly called it out. So then I'll share this template with you. You can just use this template because after I got, and this is not mine, this is Darren Fleming, one of our District 73 Toastmasters. I paid that gentleman to teach me public speaking, and he gave me this template, and I'm sharing this with you. Once I had this template with me, I gave 40 speeches in a single year across 4 clubs, of course, because as Toastmaster, nothing stops you from speaking at other clubs. So you can visit all the clubs and you can present. Now, what I recommend here is first of all, we do a brain idea dump of our speeches. So I'm assuming you have done an idea dump. You have an idea of what to speak about. So give yourself 10-15 minutes, put a timer, and you have a topic. Start, don't focus on the speech title, focus on purpose. Purpose is number one. So this is what I will ask you to do is number one, what is the purpose of my speech? We ask three questions in purpose. We
You
ask
have very fancy app. Sorry. I mean, you have very
very,
fancy apps. I'm noticing. I already downloaded the first one, the micro. I've seen you. You have some fancy technology back there.
No fancy technology. It's just Miro. It's a web app online. Yeah, but this gives you collaboration view. I generally use it at my office. Patrick would be using it in his office as well.
I have used it before, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we start with purpose here. So any speech that we start, we first think what would the and it's focused on the audience. What do so we have to ask three questions. What is the audience going to do? What the audience is going to after listening to my speech, what are they going to do? What are they going to think? Even if it's for icebreaker. If it's your icebreaker, your first ever speech, it is just to introduce yourself to an audience. What are they going to do with my speech? Because end of the day, a speech should have a purpose. And many times we have seen speakers, right? They give a very good speech, but then there is no message of the speech. You'll think, why did I hear that speech? Now I want to unhear that speech. Not possible. It's already listened to. So this means, what do you want the audience to do? What do you want the audience to think? And what do you want the audience to feel? Three actions for them. So that would define your purpose of your speech. Sorry, feel. So this is number one. We start with a purpose. Once you start with a purpose, then you do your brain dump. You then discuss who is my audience? Is it my Toastmaster club? Who is my audience? Is it my Toastmaster club? Is it my because you can use the same speech template at your office, at work, across keynotes. You can carry this and expand it to anywhere you want to. So, who is your audience? Just visualize mentally. Okay, so think that if it's in a club, Toastmasters, um, I'm going to give this purpose. Now, do think feel should connect to the audience. Otherwise, it would just miss the point. So we focus on the audience. Once you do that, you then prepare a brain dump. Give yourself 10-15 minutes. We know the purpose. What ideas are coming in your mind? And don't give mind longer time because time expands for the mind. You give them a week, it will take a full week to prepare speeches. So give just 10-15 minutes to prepare, put the brain dump. What ideas are coming through? So let's say hypothetically, if you want to, Patrick gives an icebreaker. Patrick is wants to give an icebreaker. Ravin gives his second speech. Speech purpose is already defined in my pathways, and it talks about give a speech on any topic. It's very open, any topic. So you tell, okay, my purpose, I want to give an entertaining speech. I want to make people laugh. So the purpose might be to make people laugh, and what feeling is feeling with joy. Thinking is I want them to think, rethink on. So you want the audience, you want to move the audience from point A to point B all the time. A speech has to move the audience because end of the day, it's about the audience. And I will progress. I will tell you why it is from Aristotle, who focuses on the triad. There are three items in persuasion. One is the audience, second is the message, third is the speaker. When we start our speaking journey, we focus on the speaker ourselves to improve. The second level, as you start gaining mastery, you focus on your message. That's what we are doing. The third level, the highest level of persuasion, is you start focusing on the audience. Because then it is all about the audience, it is not about me. So as we start moving through these three, and it's your personal journey. I started with me, first 5 years, that's okay. But eventually I'm telling you what is there in your path. You'll start moving more into leadership where you start focusing on people. Once we move to the audience, then that is the point where you don't feel any more. That's when your full confidence comes in when we focus on people. Okay, so we are focusing on this one. Then we focus on the audience. Number two. Then third is brain dump. We dump our ideas. What ideas are coming in my mind? Don't give yourself more time. Maximum 30 minutes. Put your ideas down. And from your ideas, you start seeing patterns. Like if I have a story, then what comes? And many times your subconscious mind kicks in and gives you ideas just like that. Sometimes it blocks you, but other times it gives you ideas, free flow. So if you do this on day one and you give yourself 30 minutes, have a notepad with you sometimes. Sometimes the subconscious gives you ideas just like it just flows. So I have a pen and paper always by my side. When I sleep, I have pen and paper. When I move around, pen and paper. When idea kicks in, I just write. And that idea, say for example, I won when I so one of the division contests, I gave a humorous speech around how to be a superhero, so a funny speech, and that idea came in the lift. I was at the bank. It came in the lift at NAB. I thought, oh, I remember being a superhero. What happens? And then the idea kept throwing. Once the idea comes in my mind, I start writing on the paper because believe it or not, if you use a computer, it's the biggest distraction device. If you have pen and paper, it doesn't distract. So go with old school pen and paper. Once we do this, you have your ideas and you have your purpose, you have an audience. We then move, strangely, we move to the conclusion. What number was it? 1, 2, 3. Now you're asking me, it
Wow,
is very strange.
I didn't think you will start there, number 3.
There was 3. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, news to me.
One, two.
First time I see, now I know. Before I didn't know. I thought you will go to next point, but it's, yeah, okay. Thank
Yeah, because traditionally, this is non-traditional. This is what my coach taught me. And I'm telling you, why conclusion? You'd ask me, it's very strange. Why should I write a conclusion? I've not written the body yet. Conclusion ties to your message with your purpose. You know your purpose. Remember, people will forget everything of your speech, but they will not forget how you made them feel. And conclusion is, it ties down to your message. You tell after listening to the speech what they will think, what will they do, what do they feel, and we tie everything to a conclusion. So that means we start, and this is the message you tell. Just hypothetically, if your message was to entertain, you can tell this is where your message comes in. You tell, you have heard my story, but haven't you thought about something? This is where you ask you directed question. Why or you questions? And when we tell you means it's focused on the audience. You questions. So that me and as we move on, we'll go through rhetorical questions. What specific questions we can have, but conclusion is like and I'm using a metaphor by the way. Conclusion is like the dessert of a meal. So you finish the food and that's a dessert. So then after you finish your meal, what do you remember is that dessert, how sweet it was, how good it was. Because it's like a three-course meal. You can have the conclusion and that the taste lingers with you for long. And I just use a technique known as a metaphor, putting in. So I used a dessert as a metaphor to just ingrain my point. And we'll cover later on how to write you related questions, but put the conclusion in place first. Once we write the conclusion, then the framework comes in is we write the points. We don't write the introduction, we write the points. Now in a speech, it's a personal story, and I would always recommend put in a personal story. We all have personal stories. We have tremendous life experience since our childhood. Put in a story and then give a point. A story, a point. A mini story, it need not be elaborate. It can be elaborate. If it's elaborate, you can remove a few stories out. But this is a structure for a mini speech, a keynote, a full day presentation as well. So a story and a point. So this would be number 4 is here. So far, so good, guys?
So
You're
far,
with
so
me?
good. Still here.
Okay, you're not dozed off. Yeah. 4, 5, and 6. So typically in a 5 to 7 minute, you can fill in 2 good stories. If you have 15-minute presentation, 3 stories. Because too many becomes too much for the audience in that space. But if you have a keynote, you can have more stories. But this is the meta structure. You have a point, story, and a point. And story has a mini beginning, body, and end as well. So you have then characters, what happened, and we'll cover storytelling in a separate session, but just imagine whatever stories you put, we are just focusing on the structure. We put in a story, and what is the point of that story? What is the lesson learned of the story that you want to let the audience know? What can they learn from the story? Now look into all the holy books, look into all the religions. People talk, we should not talk about politics and religion. I'm talking about religion here. If you get through all the religions, all the saints spoke about in parables. That means which is understood by the common people like us. They did not start with all of the bullet points and all. They started with a story and slowly they crept the point into your brains. So a story and a point. That's it. Once you put in a story and a point, we then, the last thing we do is write the introduction. We write the intro, number 5. Now, because you have already written a conclusion, you have written your full body, it's easier to write the intro now. Now you can, an intro is, you have to capture the audience's attention by asking a question, like Raveen last time asked a question. He opened up with a very good question. That's a very great strategy of opening, I would say. So there are various techniques of opening. But now, because you know the entire speech, it's easier for you to craft the introduction, which is actually ties down to the conclusion and as well as your points. Uh, Once we do this, the last bit is then second last. You see, it's transition. Now, why I should worry about transition? You'd say transition is like the bridge. It's like the string which ties your necklaces, the pearls of your necklace together. Just think of a necklace. It's the string that holds your speech together. Now, example of a transition. So imagine if it's an entertaining speech. I opened an introduction, then in the transition, I can ask a rhetorical question like, but have you thought about something? You ask the question and then slowly move to your story, and then finally reinstate that point. So we put in clear about transitions. Yeah, and we'll get to that point. Once we get to the stage, we'll get to the point. Now you craft your transitions. I'm just going to put in transition. Yeah. Once we finish this, our speech is ready. Then you can take your own sweet time to put in your speech title. That's the last thing you would do. It works the other way around because now we are actually building it from the bottom up rather than top down. When you build it from the bottom up, it's easier to come with a speech title. Otherwise, I've seen myself getting stuck on, okay, speech, what am I going to write? And I'm stuck on a speech title, and the Toastmaster session is there 1 hour before I'm just writing my speech. I started with my speech title. The last is writing the speech title. 7. Yeah, that's it. That's your speech template. How cool is it?
Yeah, very good.
I'm going to share this in a PDF format and send it to you. What I want you to do here is don't memorize anything here. I'll give
Yeah,
you a template with numbers there. You use the
yeah,
speech title, which is here. I'll give you this speech title, the template, speech template, and I'll put in numbers here. You just have to start writing. Use the template to write a speech, even if it is just scribbling points. Once you scribble right, then you can do it in a proper note properly. You can do it. Yeah. Any questions? I'll just pause for a moment just for you to reflect. Any questions?
You mentioned of the notepad that you keep next to, the question is unrelated to the sheet. The
Mm.
notepad, do you only have one notepad or do you have one in the car and one next to your bedside table, one in the elevator with you, or is it just one notepad you carry with you all the time?
Good question. I have multiple. So I have this one as my
Yeah,
rough notepad. Plus I have. So at that time when inspiration comes in, right? Anything that I want to write.
yeah.
So yeah, I have written my speeches on tissues of paper as well,
All right,
except
okay.
colored paper, but tissues of paper.
Yeah.
Plus I have kept is my book of interesting words.
All right, okay. Yeah,
So, sometimes I listen to speakers and I see people, some people using so brilliant words. I want to use it,
yeah,
and I steal their words. What I really liked is for example, I have written from the contest. I wrote duality,
yeah. Okay.
ferocity, sublime, yeah, collusion. So
Yeah,
those words, once I put in, when I rewrite my speech, I get in my good words. So your
yeah,
speeches sound more richer. And
yeah,
Patrick, you did mention, right, around vocabulary. How do you build a vocabulary in your speeches? Is we
yeah.
build it when we rewrite it. When we
Okay.
rewrite it, we have a favorite book of good words. We tell, okay, now what words can I borrow? I can remove or pick this one. Once you start doing that way, you actually embody that vocabulary in your speeches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's my trick.
Yeah. Okay.
So, uh,
One comment. Yeah. Sorry. Anyone else? Yeah. I've got a comment. I can relate to what you said earlier when you mentioned that what you write is, and if you try to deliver what you write, um, so, sometimes you come up with words that are not easy to pronounce
mm, mm,
in a speech. And I like the fact that you said just get rid of it and strike through and
that's it.
use another because I get caught trying to use
Yes.
some words and then I mispronounce. And as I was telling you in the chat, once I mispronounce a word or two, that's
Yeah.
it. I'm out of the game.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and when we read our speeches, we also
yeah,
listen to ourselves, like when we read our speeches. And I'm talking about reading. Once you write the speech, the next phase is you have to read it out.
yeah, yeah,
Like think your delivery while reading it, you can record it. I record myself while reading it and I delete the recording later. But
yeah,
once I record myself, I again listen to it.
yeah,
Um, any places that sounds clunky, I get rid of it.
yeah,
So, and once you get rid of it and you get better words, I also pronounce that word 3, 4 times. So
yeah,
it's also properly done. People
yeah,
understand. Because, for example, um, beaches word, if you remove certain syllables, shorten certain syllables, it sounds totally horrible.
yeah,
And I've seen people doing it. So, but because I know, so I understand it. Certain words sound totally different if we do
yeah,
not pronounce it properly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Patrick.
It's okay.
A quick
Uh,
one. How long do you prepare for a speech?
good question. I first write a speech. Once I write, this takes around 15, 20 minutes to prepare a speech. Then I practice on the delivery. So what I've done is I I practice it once, I rewrite it once. So again, 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes again, because it's part of your speech. You practice it twice and then you just go deliver. So at least twice I practice. So it takes me around an hour to finish off now. It will take you longer initially, but as you start building the muscle, the more you do it with the template, it's easier. Now the template, I don't need to think what do I write. So I put in. The other thing now, as you start moving into the stage and presenting, is you might not give the speech word to word. And that's okay, because that is when you are focusing on the audience. For example, when you speak, if the audience is waiting, listening, you plant pauses. I'll just show you how I write my speeches, right? I'll show you. And you'll be surprised how I write my speech, how it looks. Uh, this is my Notion, and it's writing speech template. Okay, so this one is green monkey. You see, this is I'm writing in poetry style now. So this was my speech, and you see, beginning. This is the transition. See, transition. You start looking at the metastructure. This is the body. This transition, another transition, then body, and you start writing. And if you see, I'm not writing in paragraph style because I can't read in paragraphs. When you are speaking on stage, you can't read in paragraphs. So maximum 6-7 words per line, and you write that speech. You see, you feel like you are reading poetry, but that's a full speech, and it sounds full. And this won me second place. And I also what I do is yeah, there's a fast fact here. I also count the words, how many words I've spoken, I've written. Now you have 4 to 6 minutes. Find how much words you speak per minute. Once you write, to become a good speaker, you have to actually become a good writer as well. Only what when you write, we are looking at the economy of words. So the reason I use Notion is what I can tell here is space, word count. It gives me word count here. Okay, AI is not temporarily available, but it gives you that word count.
Is that Grammarly?
Which one?
Or was the AI you use Grammarly or something else?
No, it is Notion's AI. You can use ChatGPT. You can, and you see, these are the world champions which I have actually studied to see their speeches. This was Louisa's speech, the 37 Strangers, and look at her speech. I watched it. I wrote their speeches again. There's another technique I learned here is once I watch good speeches, I write their speeches. I pause, write their words, and this is what I have done. Whenever there is bold means they're emphasizing it. Otherwise, this is normal voice. And this is their structure. As you start understanding, when you look at people's speeches, start being a learner and see why it worked, what is their structure, and see and put in a bullet points, right? Okay, Luisa's speech was intro, how she met in an accident and then she went to heaven in her dreams. Then she recovered, road to recovery, and then finally, power of others. And I use ChatGPT to actually start looking into why it worked. See, repetition, humor, imagery, dialogue, contrast, all of it. So all those speaking techniques come in, which we'll cover. What is parallelism, hypophora, anaphora, rule of three, yeah, all that. Which TM, unfortunately, Toastmasters do not teach. One day, once I become the district director or Toastmaster president, I will change it to give this knowledge to everybody in the Toastmaster curriculum. They don't teach all this, but when you read the books, for example, most of it is from Aristotle's Rhetorics, and the ancient Greeks used these techniques. We call them as rhetorical devices to influence or persuade the audience. and we're still using it. So yeah, we'll cover that, not too much today. I think that's it, guys. I'm going to share this template with you. So next action would be um, s- just write your speech. I think that's the only action. Prepare anything that you have in your mind and just give it a go with this formula and see how easy it is. And it is eventually going to be easy for you to start preparing. Because once we have to deal with the law of averages. Once we give more speeches, then we start becoming more fluent. An average Toastmaster master gives around 2 to 3 speeches a year, an average. But you you want to give 2 or 3, that means the growth is extremely slow if you give 2 speeches a year. So like imagine Raveen gave last meeting he gave a speech and he gives another speech in October. So then what you don't get the benefit. The benefit comes when you go put yourself on the stage, because when you're putting on yourself on the stage, sometimes these memories will fade. You will fail. That's okay. But you are slowly going progressing and getting better every time. Once you're feeling comfortable at the club level, start speaking outside. Are there any engagements you want to pursue? In say child's school, you want to give a speech, local church, you want to give a speech, or even at other Toastmaster clubs, just as a visitor. Hey, I'm a visitor, I want to give a speech. Do you have a spot? Beforehand, work with them. Like at our place, we have Cranbourne Toastmasters, we have Lynbrook Toastmasters, and you know what? Every Toastmaster have a few speakers who'd chicken out every time. You ask John for that at our club, because they wouldn't turn up because they feel nervous, because it feels that the false fear appears real. That's a false evidence appears real. That's what Zig Ziglar mentioned. It's like you feel I can't give it, start choking, and people don't turn up. When we start building this muscle, you prepare your speeches, then there are various avenues where you can give your speech. Don't limit yourself to Toastmasters only. All right, I'll let you go because it's been a long evening for you.
Sorry, I
Uh,
have question.
yeah, please, Catherine.
Um, you mentioned that you have a lot of notes. How did you review all the notes and collect that at the end of the day? Like, how do you know, compile everything and know when to use and what to use?
That's my muscle. That's a good question because, yes, notes are there. What I do is I have an idea, a story book, or idea journal. And in that idea, I have divided into 5 segments. And I put it in like all with the 5 emotions. I categorize across 5 emotions like anger, sadness, guilt, then happiness, and yeah, one more. So when I put in all those emotions, when I put in a story, I tell is this particular story, this particular idea comes in, what emotion is it arising? Because remember the purpose. What do you want the audience to do, think, and feel? I categorize on the feeling one, and I tear off that paper and move it to the feeling, that idea, story. What emotions is it evoking in the audience? Not in me, in the audience, and put that there. So later on, once I start writing my story, I have my book open, I pick the stories out, and then prepare a speech. It's like it's a like a la carte menu for me. Depends on my audience, how hungry they are. I am the chef. I can prepare a meal out of it. Does that help, Catherine?
Yes, thank you very much.
And I learned it from comedy world. I learned it from a professional comedy coach, Judy Carter. She taught it that way. And comedians do that from comedy world. Is they put in all the emotions based on they sort the jokes based on the emotions which evoked laughter. So they sort it. So then it's easier for you to prepare a speech later on. So be a idea collector as you move on. Your brain is tremendous, guys. It gives you ideas at places which you don't think of. and just note down, because if we don't note down our ideas, it's lost forever. You might think, oh, I'll put it in my head, I'll remember tomorrow, and then tomorrow happens, and what did I remember? I totally forgot my idea. So be a note collector of your ideas, because you will give yourself the best material. You don't need anybody else. You just need your own brain. All good. We'll wrap it up. Ravin, Vijeta, you are
All good.
quiet. Any questions?
Yeah,
Thank you
how
very
to
much.
select a speech, Anshuman, actually.
I would say how to select a speech. Pathways gives you one idea on the purpose. Once you have the purpose, the second one is you give yourself 20 minutes. Once you define the purpose, say, I want to prepare which pathway, if I ask you, Vijeta, are you doing?
I'm presently doing leadership skills.
Leadership skills. So think about leadership skills. W- Think about your audience and pick one subject. The leadership skills is wide.
Mm.
Pick one subject of leadership, say courage, for example. I'm just hypothetical thinking. Courage is one idea.
Yeah.
Give yourself 20 minutes, and then before the 20 minutes, ask yourself, in my speech of courage, what do I want the audience to do? Um, Take action. Uh, Then what do I want my audience to think and feel? Feel is taking action. For me, it comes anger. I want them to become angry, and because speaking is a really powerful skill. You can manipulate emotions. You can evoke emotions, any emotion out. If you feel it, you'll evoke the same emotion, and we are building to that skill, because at certain places we want to build anger in our speeches.
Mm.
Look at all the activists, right? Look at Dr. Martin Luther King. Look at Winston Churchill during the World War II, where he told, never, never, never surrender. That creates anger. When you read that speech, that creates anger.
Mm. Mm.
So think of what emotion you want to create. Once you think, okay, I want to evoke, say, joy, for example, or anger, or to take them from one step, I want to make them angry on their current situation. Then you put in your stories around what time you did not take courage and what was happening.
Okay.
What other story? Just think of your life. Every time you, or sometimes you took one step and things happened, or you
Mm.
watch somebody else. It might not be your story as well.
Mm.
Watch somebody else take some action and things happen.
Yeah.
Put that within that 20-minute segment. Put what story is coming in my mind. Once you have it, then you go to your speech template and prepare. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Anshuman.
If you want next session, we can, if you want, we can discuss about brainstorming speech ideas. We can pick a topic and then we'll just brainstorm together what ideas are coming in your mind. So then the speech generation muscle will start developing. Would that work for you guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's do
Thank you
that.
very much, Anshuman.
So homework
Thank you
for
for
you.
your
Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you, Ravin. 51. I'll let you go, but think of next week, not next week, week after, in 2 weeks' time. Think of what one idea, what speech ideas you have in mind. Bring on the table. If you are struggling for anything, bring on the table. Together as a collective group, we'll brainstorm and we will help you out. It's also again not about me, it's about you. We all will work together to help you out here. Cool? Okay, guys, I think we had a fantastic session. I'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Anshuman.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
Ravin
Anshuman.
and Patrick will see you next week.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Look
See you
forward to see
later.
you, Anshuman. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you,
Take care.
Suman.
Bye.
Yeah, catch you. See
Bye.
everyone else.
Bye.
Yeah.
See you. See you, Patrick. See you, Lisa. See you,
Yeah.
Catherine.